I thought I would take a slightly lighthearted start to... Okay, so this week, and this is probably my fault, this week is 10-6, Timmy. I don't know. Well, we'll find out in a minute. 10-7, right. Not 9:30. That's the important thing. Yeah. I don't know what just happened. Can you hit escape for me and try that again? That would be awesome.
Charlie Brown version Wild West.
Tonight we've been having lots of fun technical problems. It's been pretty exciting. All right. I'm not really sure. Maybe quit PowerPoint and restart it.
Are you speaking at the same time?
Try it in the big black.
We're just going to have fun. So, for whatever reason, a piece of equipment broke across the parking lot, and it's messed everything up for the whole campus. So, it's been really exciting. And by really exciting, I mean not at all. But that's okay. We're going to give this one more try, and then we're going to abandon it. How has the week been while we wait? Let's try that again. Long. Say what? We're going to skip it. It's okay. Because what do you do? So we're going to pick up this week. Come back with me. We're going to pick up this week where we left off last week. So we're in the middle of these 7 moments that Jesus said, I am. And said it in a way that he was talking about being God, not just like, hi, I'm Jesus, I'm here. And last week we talked about how he said this really weird thing about being the door, the gate of the sheep in John chapter 10. And then this week we pick up right after that. So he has been talking to the Pharisees and the people, and he says that he's the way to safety, that he gives life and life abundant. And then we continue in verse 11 where we read, I am the good shepherd. So first he's the gate, and now he's the shepherd. Okay, the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, since he is not the shepherd and doesn't own the sheep, leaves them and runs away when he sees a wolf coming. The wolf then snatches and scatters them, and this happens because he's a hired hand and doesn't care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I lay down my life for the sheep, but I have other sheep that are not from this sheep pen. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. Then there will be one flock, one shepherd, and this is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life so that I may take it up again. Oh, we're going to come back to that. So, you're going to get time to savor that gem in a minute. All right, so now we've heard the whole thing, I want to start to unpack it. He says, I am the good shepherd. Now, in the video we ended up not watching, you can YouTube this puppy, is a great video from a Super Bowl long ago about herding cats. And sometimes I feel like that is what my life is full of. Either when the dog is fighting with the cat, or the child is fighting with the cat, or the middle schoolers are acting like cats, or anyway. But it's kind of funny. But this idea of herding, of shepherding, of pointing, of providing, right? A shepherd does what? Shepherds the sheep. Thank you for using a word in its own definition, high school student. That is not a thing we do. Boo. Oh. Wow. All right. What does a shepherd do? They murder innocent animals? Ideally, they prevent... Technically, the slaughterhouse murders the innocent animals so that we may eat their deliciousness. Sheep is good. But... Say what? There you go. So the shepherd takes care of them, guides them, makes sure they're taken care of, gets them in, handles the lost sheep, all these things, right? And Jesus says in verse 11 that the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Now, I know that most of us don't have sheep. But think of like some of us have fair pigs, or some of us have cattle, or some of us have goats. I don't know why anyone has goats, by the way, but that's an aside. No offense, Rachel. No offense. And I do like goat cheese, that's for sure. And curried goat is actually good, but I digress. So, but here's the deal. I know, especially those of you who have raised them yourself. Shh. Stick with me. Yeah, I see the two of you. Nick, I'm talking to you too. Thank you. I know that most of you, even when you love your animals, even when you help them be born till the minute you sell them off, like, you love them, you take care of them, but how many people here would jump in front of a wolf, a bear, a gun, a PETA person, the Holy Slaughterhouse at Chick-fil-A? How many of you would jump in front of one of those things and give up your life for one of your animals? So Amanda would. There's always someone who raises their hand. All right, a few. Say what? Okay, that's not what we're talking about, but thanks for that. So here's the deal. Even back in Jesus' day, when they were a little more agricultural than we are, it was still weird for a shepherd to die for his sheep. Because he's doing the shepherding to provide for his family, and if he's dead, how's he going to provide for his family? Especially in a culture that had no way for a single woman, a widow, to provide for herself. Because if he died, his wife didn't get the sheep. Somebody else, some other male in the family got the sheep. Now, all of you ladies out there are like, that's not fair. And you're right, it's not. But that's history, and it's unfortunate. Thankfully, we have progressed a little bit. So it's really unique. Jesus is getting people's attention when he says the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, since he's not the shepherd, doesn't own the sheep. Well, that's for sure. Leaves them and runs away when he sees a wolf coming. That also makes sense. The wolf snatches and scatters them. This happens because he's a hired hand. He doesn't care, which is true. And we have things in our life that are like that, right? We don't all follow around some herd of animals. Some of us do, which is super cool, but some don't. So here's a great example that I thought I would bless you with. So a lot of you don't know that for 2.5 years when I was in high school, I worked at Taco Bell. So this is the only photo I have of me when I worked at Taco Bell, because who takes pictures of that? But it was in my sophomore yearbook. I actually went home today and filed my sophomore yearbook and took this picture of this picture. That's a friend of mine that I'm working with there. And obviously I posed as badly for pictures back then as I do now. And I had to drive through that day apparently, so I was already unhappy. Drive through is the worst, but I digress. Some of you know that. It's the worst. Say what?
Did you get a Karen working there?
Did I get a care?
A Karen.
Oh. Yeah. So, I have lots of Taco Bell stories. That's not the point. Here's the deal. So, I would make, on a Friday night, I would work an 8-hour shift, and I can't tell you how many tacos I would either make or pass through a window.
Yes.
Hundreds, I don't know. I don't care. And that was the thing, is I really didn't care. I would make sure you got what you ordered. Most of my coworkers didn't even care about that. I don't know. If half of your meat was missing, I just didn't lose sleep over it. If I gave you the wrong tray of drinks, I was only really concerned if you came back through the line and I had to do it again. Because I was working barely above minimum wage at the lowest rung of the fast food ladder and basically just trying to make it through paying my car insurance, right? I mean, that is the thing some people say. So the one and only little fun thing to working there is I got to make my own food. Right when I was on break. Not everybody who works fast food gets to do that. Some managers are stricter than others. Some companies are stricter than others. But I got to make my own food. And when I made food for me, I took a lot of care. And not only, I could make stuff that wasn't on the menu, and I could make it right, and I could make sure it was right, and that it hadn't, fallen on a floor or been brought back on a tray, or any of those things that never happen. But I took good care of what was going to be for me, and it's a very similar thing, right? Jesus is taking care. He's going the extra mile for the people that are his own. Right? And so he says, we're going to come back to that too. All right. He says, I'm just full of pictures today. So the good shepherd lays his down life for the sheep. Because there's this relationship. And then he says in 14, he says it again, I'm the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. He's kind of repeating, obviously he says it twice. He's repeating this thing, but he's making a really important point. And it points back to this warning he has in Matthew 7 where he says, in the last days, some people will say, Lord, Lord, and God will say, get away from me, you doer of evil, I knew you not. Which is the thing nobody wants to hear. But he says, I know my own, and my own know me. How much do we want to be known by him? Not just know stuff about him, but known by him. There's a huge difference, right? So this guy is Duff Goldman. He has multiple shows on Food Network. The guy in the chef's jacket. The guy in the sweater, the V-neck, his name is Jeff Manthorne. He's Duff's number 2 guy. I watch too much Food Network, or at least I did when I had cable. So one day, in the vast wasteland that is Statesville, North Carolina, Jeff Manthorne came to our Chick-fil-A while I was there, and I got to meet him. So I could say, I know him because I have a picture of me with him. That's not photoshopped. That's real. Sadly, he was on his way to a funeral, so I felt mildly guilty, but not guilty enough to not take the picture. But if you called up Jeff on his cell phone right now and he's like, so, how's Greg doing? He'd be like, who? Right? There's a difference between knowing someone and knowing someone. 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
You look the same.
Thank you. Well, he was driving. He lived in Baltimore at the time and was driving to Charlotte. So he wasn't actually going to the funeral that 5 minutes. But my point here is I could say I know who he is, but he has no idea who I am. As soon as he took this picture and went and sat down and ate his chicken sandwich, he forgot I existed, which is fine. But there's a difference between saying you know who someone is and being known by somebody. Right? So he says, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. But I have other sheep that are not from this sheep pen. I must bring them also, and they'll listen to my voice. Then there will be one flock and one shepherd. Okay, this is an interesting verse. Anybody have a Mormon friend? They use this verse to talk about Jesus coming to North America. That's not what this is talking about. When we read this in context, which is not hard to do, we started that last week, he's just saying that he has 2 groups of sheep, he's moving into one. And if we keep reading, we know he's taking the believing Jews and he's taking the Gentiles and making one church. Sorry, North America, it's not Jesus at a Mexican temple, though he does love people who live in North America, which is good because that's us, but that's not what's going on. So, wrong way, sorry. He says, this is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life so that I may take it up again. Also another weird verse. On the surface, it makes it sound like God only loves God because God's going to die. This is weird. So this is a way of translating this verse. I'm going to spare you all the boring technical details that no one cares about and say that a better way of translating this verse is to actually say, because the Father loves me, that is the reason I lay down my life. There's boring stuff that supports what I just said. And there's a pattern for us to follow there. This isn't just Greg getting hooked up on weird words that don't matter. This really matters because Jesus is following a pattern. The Father loves, so Jesus loves sacrificially, so we're supposed to love sacrificially. Right? The model of the Father provides a model for the Son, which provides a model for us. And Jesus says in 18, no one takes my life, from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have the right to lay it down, and I have the right to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. We don't have the right to kill ourselves. We don't have the right to unkill ourselves. Only God has the right to do that, right? Jesus is saying important and scandalous things that are upsetting everyone around him. You see, it says, I've received this command from my Father. The only person he can get that from is God. And notice that through all of this, the sheep are doing nothing. Jesus is doing everything and the sheep are doing nothing. Which is super important and super encouraging because we are capable of doing nothing to get ourselves right with God. He has to do it for us. We are the sheep. He's the one doing the work, and we are grateful for that. Again, verse 19, the Jews were divided because of these words. Many of them were saying, he has a demon and he's crazy. Why do you listen to him? Others were saying, these aren't the words of someone who is demon-possessed. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? So once again, all along the way, he's being clear about who he is, and the Jews are reacting accordingly. Some of them are coming to faith in him. Some of them are angry that he's taking away their power. Some of them think he's a heretic and literally want to kill him. And so that's where we're going to pick up with our group discussion tonight. Because Jesus willingly laid down his life, the sacrifice is meaningful. It wasn't taken from him. It wasn't forced on him. It wasn't an accident. He wasn't a victim. He was displaying love. He was following this model of the Father, loving sacrificially. And to know Christ, to be known by him, means to love sacrificially. And we're going to talk about that in a very specific way here in a second. But I guess I want us to wrap up with a couple of questions. One, would you say that Jesus knows you? I think a lot of us would be quick to say we know who Jesus is. Would we? And I hope we would be as quick to say that Jesus knows us. It's kind of like the line from Count of Monte Cristo where they're in the tunnel and he says that I have given up on God, priest. And the priest says, yes, but God hasn't given up on you. Right? So, does Jesus know you? We'd love to help you answer that question if you don't have one. But also, is there something Jesus knows about you that you need to make right before you leave tonight? We're going to pray, and then I want us to talk through a couple of things. So, Jesus, we thank you for laying down your life. We thank you even more for taking it back up again. And we thank you that because of your sacrifice, we don't have to do the thing we can't do, and yet we still have a way back to you. I pray, Jesus, that we would live in honor of that. I pray that we would share that. I pray that we would live in a sacrificial way so that you get all of the sheep and the glory that you deserve. It's in your name we pray. Amen. I know, like for a lot of us who are not sheep people, a lot of this sheep talk is weird. But Jesus shifts gears with the next item that we're going to look at next week. We do have a couple of short things coming up, but then I want to talk about a bigger thing. So we're only a couple weeks away from the movie night, which will be in the parking lot. We're going to watch The Princess Bride. It's going to be great. And then for those of you in this room who would like to pay for some sort of college future, coming up on November 8th, we have a free lunch. And I know this will be more exciting to your parents than you, but a free lunch with a Christian financial group that can help figure out some college funding and planning. Here's a new thing, high school, that I want us to start working towards. So we talked tonight briefly about this idea of loving sacrificially, giving sacrificially, because everything's not about us, right? So one of the ways I think is really helpful for us to do that is, as we're getting older, to be using those gifts God has given us in the broader church. So especially seniors, but everyone in this room, I want to lay out a challenge before you. And we can talk about the details in a second, but I want to start something I'm unofficially calling, because I like corny names, mentornships, which are ministry internships. I think by the time you graduate, every believer should have some place they are serving in the bigger church. And that doesn't mean like every time you walk in the doors, you're in this one corner. Maybe it does. But I think everybody should have a place of service, because every believer has gifts that the body needs, and everybody is needed. So my challenge is, especially 11th and 12th graders, let's start finding that place for you. And I want to help with that. Some of you are already doing that, right? I have guys in this room who run cameras. I've got ladies in this room who help in the nursery. I've got a guy in this room who often helps in the nursery. I'm not going to make him tell us whether it's against his will or because he enjoys it, but we're just going to let it be what it is. But there's a lot. Those are areas of the church that need servants, for sure. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. But there's a whole big church, and if there was any time that someone was going to be willing to a younger person plugging in, it's now. We need volunteers, and the church needs you. They need your energy and your enthusiasm and your frankness. So Frank, who's Frank? I enjoy the literal corniness, I do, but we're going to move on. So, in the days to come, I'll kind of find a way to organize this better, but if there's an area of the church that you know, hey, I think I would like to find a way to plug in, text me, right? Email me, FaceSpace me, Instagram me, something. Text me. I'm gonna be asking different leaders in the church, hey, how many people can I plug in with you? How many people? And these are going to be situations where we don't just like stick you in a room with 15 3-year-olds and say, go change diapers. Like you're gonna get trained and equipped, and we're gonna try and match you with something that you find enjoyable. But it is less than Christian to come and sit in a church and soak everything in and do nothing. That is not the pattern that Christ leaves. And so I'm asking you that nobody in the church has asked me to do this. I'm doing this because I think this makes us healthier and makes us more like the church. I'm not doing this because somebody told me I've got to recruit 15 teenagers. Because there's more than 15 of you in this room, and I think everybody should have a place. For some of you, that's going to be doing something in here. Some of you, that's in the big room. Some of you, that's in children. Some of you, maybe that's a greeter or helping in the parking lot. Or I don't know if 18-year-olds are allowed to drive golf carts, but some of you still shouldn't anyway. But there are lots of different ways to serve. So, and you may be interested and have no idea what you should do. We'll help you find something that might be a good fit. So I want that on your radar as you go out this week. I hope you have a great rest of the week.